So this place too has been attacked by Ganon. Could he already be regaining his power? We must get the remaining pearl. It lies in a place northwest of here. This is Legendary Adventures, a Legend of Zelda playthrough podcast. This week we're venturing out into the wider world of the Great Sea. We'll visit Greatfish Isle, make return trips to Windfall Island and Outset Island, and venture into the mysterious Tower of the Gods. But let's not rush into things. After all, this is an open world title, and the world is opening in new and exciting ways. On the island there is a mysterious hatch. Which island, you ask? The small one just east of Forest Haven. It's tall and steep. The only way up would be to use a ladder or to fly. Luckily, Link can sail through the sky. The hatch is sealed shut. There is no way to open it. Taking possession of a seagull, Link can hit a crystal switch high up on Forest Haven. The hatch opens. Inside is the Nintendo Gallery. It is empty at the moment. Whether it will stay that way is up to you. The proprietor of the gallery is Karlov, a woodcarver. He will take well-snapped color photos and create a carving of the subject of that photo. The gallery is an extensive side quest involving every character and creature in the game. It's a slow and labor-intensive process, especially in the original GameCube version. In that version of the game, Link's Pictobox holds only 3 photos max, and Karlov will take only 1 photo at a time. He takes a day to carve each figure, though time can be sped up through the Song of Passing. Upgrading Link's Pictobox to color also requires catching a forest firefly in Forest Haven and taking it to Lenzo on Windfall Island. The HD version streamlines things. Link is awarded a color Pictobox for completing Lenzo's apprenticeship quest. His Pictobox now holds up to 12 photos. If a photo meets Karlov's standards for carving a figurine, the photo will be marked with an icon, and Karlov will take all 12 of Link's photos and carve up to 12 figurines at a time. All that said, I've personally never completed the Nintendo Gallery. I've had plenty of figurines made, just not all of them. I find it fun to a certain degree, but not enough to push through and find every figurine in the game. When a figurine is made, players can view it in the gallery, and learn additional details about that character or creature. I understand the reward for completing the gallery is a unique figurine of Link riding the King of Red Lions, and the satisfaction of being declared the master of the Nintendo Gallery. To the northeast of Forest Haven is an island with multiple high peaks. There are at least 4 peaks that can be seen rising from the water to the east. Once players get closer, they'll soon realize that it's actually 2 small islands side by side. One features steep, tall spires which are impossible to climb. The tallest of them all have bird nests on their peaks. The adjacent island features a flat-topped peak that is relatively easy to climb. This is Bird Peak Rock, the hiding place of the magical golden Triumph Forks. Yeah, mystical triangle-shaped magical cutlery. On the flat-topped island there is a steel gate blocking the entrance to a cave. There are 6 peaks on the adjacent island topped with bird nests. Inside each nest lies a crystal switch. Using a Hioi pair, Link can possess seagulls and use it to hit the crystal switches. The Kargaroks, which own the nests, are not happy about the intrusion, and they will hunt down any seagull possessed by Link. It took me multiple tries to activate all switches in both versions of the game, but I came stocked with plenty of pairs. Once the switches are all lit, the steel gate opens. The cave is largely natural, but there is a shrine of carved white stone on the far end of the cave. A crest featuring a bird-like shape beneath 3 golden triangles is prominently displayed. We know it to be the crest of the royal family of Hyrule. On the floor there is a low pedestal with the symbol of the 3 triangles again, the Triforce. Just opposite of it is a symbol of the wind. Using the Wind Waker to play the Wind's Requiem, a treasure chest appears. Inside is a Triforce chart. In the GameCube version of the game, there are 8 of these charts to find. In the HD version, it's been whittled down to 3. The charts are used to find the pieces of the Triforce of Courage. That particular quest is not formally introduced until the 3rd act of the game, but it is hinted at throughout. We started the quest on Windfall Island by freeing Tingle from jail and giving Mrs. Marie her first joy pendant. Each Triforce chart needs to be deciphered by Tingle before the players can use it to obtain the Triforce shard. He charges 398 rupees per chart to decipher them. This quest is often spoken about in commentaries as if it is a strictly third act quest, but players can collect 6 of the 8 pieces before reaching the third act. I did not go that far in this playthrough, but I did do a bit before reaching the final act of the game. Prior to this point, players are fairly limited to where they could sail, and how far they could explore. Those limits are now completely gone at this point of the game. Players can literally sail anywhere on the Great Sea. To be clear, that doesn't mean that players can do everything on the Great Sea, but if players find an island or a platform that they cannot complete at this moment, all that means is they have to take a mental or physical note and return later. That's how all Zelda games have worked to this point in the series' history, and the Wind Waker is no different. I personally made my way more or less directly towards the waypoint marked on the sea chart by the King of Red Lions. Even then, I still managed to take a slightly different route between my 2 playthroughs. The routes I took ran parallel to each other, but I did not come across the same islands. When playing on the HD version on Wii U, I sailed due west from Forest Haven, adding islands like Ice Ring Isle, Southern Fairy Island, and Five-Eyed Reef to my sea chart. On GameCube, I sailed due west from Bird's Peak Rock, and I passed by Bomb Island, the Private Oasis, Stone Watcher Island, and the Islet of Steel. As we approach Greatfish Isle from a distance, we can see a storm cloud similar to the one that surrounded Dragon Roost Island hanging above the island. As we draw closer, it becomes clear Greatfish Isle was destroyed. Ganon tore it apart. The King of Red Lions explains the island was home to the third spirit, a water spirit named Jaboon. There is no sign of him. Quill, the Rito postman, then appears. Quill explains that Jaboon has escaped the destruction of the island and relocated to Link's home island, Outset. There is a massive stone blocking the way to Jaboon's hiding place. Bombs will be needed to get inside. Quill apologizes and says he also gave this information to Tetra and her pirate crew. The pirates have gone to Windfall Island to get bombs. Quill urges Link to leave the remains of Greatfish Isle as soon as possible. He mentions that Valoo called the place Cursed. Before leaving, I swam out to a spiral-shaped island south of the destroyed beach where Link spoke to Quill. At the top is a Korok. There are 8 Koroks scattered across the Great Sea. They are part of a side quest that I did not complete for this playthrough. It involves bringing forest water to all 8 Koroks and their withered saplings within a time limit. I used the Deku Leaf to fly from this island to an otherwise unreachable cave and score a heart piece. Then it was on to Windfall Island. The most direct route involves redirecting the wind to the northeast. As Link travels through the ominous storm that started when he arrived on Greatfish Island, a new version of the Great Sea theme plays. The tempo has been increased, the key changed. It has a more ominous feel to it. The melody is played much more quickly, and resolves into Ganon's theme, which was first introduced in A Link to the Past and is returning here. Here's how it sounded like in A Link to the Past. And here it is in the Wind Waker. At Windfall Island, we find a pirate ship on the northwestern side of the island where the King of Red Lions dropped us off on our first visit. The king says we must try to avoid raising suspicion. I've played through the Wind Waker many times at this point in my life, and I stopped a second on this playthrough and wondered how I knew where to go next. The pirates are holed up inside the bomb shop, though it isn't necessarily apparent at first. If players try to enter the bomb shop through the door, they're told that they can't get in. Likewise, players can't enter the pirate ship either. A password is required. I can't recall taking time to guess at the password on my very first playthrough, even consulting a dictionary and trying to determine what the word might be, but it was no help. The pirates are the talk of the town, and some people doubt that they have really arrived on their island. There is a man named Camo who spends his nights sitting on the outer wall of the village looking through a telescope. He mentions he saw the pirates go toward the bomb shop. Players will have to find their way to the back of the bomb shop and enter through a small hole on the back of the roof. Inside the shop, Link sees the pirates are stealing bombs. They have the shop owner bound and gagged, chiding him for his excessively high prices. And make no mistake, at a price of 10 bombs for 10,000 rupees, these were excessive prices. Tetra urges her crew to get the bombs so they can quickly depart. She wants to get to Outset right away. She seems more concerned about the potential death and destruction that may come to Outset if they don't acquire the pearl than she does about the treasure herself. Her crew is floored by this. Gonzo pushes for them to spend a night on shore, to give the crew a chance to relax. Tetra hears a sound above her and notices that Link is spying on them. She changes her mind instantly and agrees to let the crew spend the night after they've stowed the bombs away. As Link continues to spy on the pirate crew, he learns the secret password to enter the pirate ship. I believe there are 6 possible passwords. Which one will be used will be different each time players start a new game. In my experience, the password will not work until players pick it up by eavesdropping. In my GameCube playthrough, the password was Plankton. In my HD playthrough, the password was Treasure. Only Nico is on board the ship. The rest of the pirates are enjoying their night of shore leave. That means we have a chance to explore Tetra's cabin. There are some interesting pictures hanging on her walls, including an image of the Hero of Time from the game's prologue. There's a sea chart with lines linking 3 islands into the shape of a Triforce. There's also a photo of a woman who appears to be Tetra's mother. In the ship's hold, Nico presents Link with a second challenge, similar to the one that he gave at the start of the game. This time, Link has to cross a room by leaping from rope to rope. After finishing Nico's challenge, he awards Link bombs. Tetra then speaks through the Gossip Stone. She says her pirate crew won't leave shore until morning. Link didn't get all the bombs, so Tetra tells him that he better be quick or the pirates will overtake him and get to Jaboon first. So we sail towards Outset Island, though we don't actually have to travel quickly. The night will not end before we arrive. This means players can venture into locations that require the use of bombs if they choose. I took this opportunity to visit the Islet of Steel. Using bombs on the King of Red Lions causes Link to pull out a cannon, allowing him to fight ships and other enemies with bombs. We blast our way into the islet and find a second white shrine like the one we found at Bird's Peak Rock. We get another Triforce chart by playing the Wind's Requiem at the shrine. When we arrive on Outset, the King of Red Lions notes the night seems to have been magically extended. He says because of this, we don't have to fear the pirates overtaking us. He urges Link to check back in with his family and friends on the island. Inside Link's house, Grandma is sick with grief. She does not comprehend that Link is home and calls out for him and Errol. Players have a choice here. Will they do what they can to heal Grandma, or will they be cruel and heartless and simply continue on with their quest? I just continued on in my HD playthrough, but I took the time to heal Grandma in the GameCube version. Again, I found myself wondering how I knew the solution to this problem, so I went ahead and talked to some people on Outset Island. Sturgeon explains that a little fairy dust will make Grandma better, and he reminds players that there is a fairy fountain in the woods on top of the island. The fountain is blocked by a large boulder which can be destroyed by bombs. The Great Fairy herself offers Link a wallet upgrade. With the upgrade, he can hold up to 1,000 rupees. It is worth talking about the design of the Great Fairy. They look very unlike any other Great Fairy in the series, with 4 arms and no visible legs. Their body sort of ends in a cartoon-like ghost tail. Design manager Yoshiki Haruhana talked a bit about this radical redesign for the Great Fairy in the Japanese guidebook. He said, "In Ocarina of Time, I happened to create very strong characters in the Great Fairies, so with the Wind Waker, I started out by worrying what I could do this time." He laughed. "The first thing I thought of was a ghost or alien, something that was almost human in form, but also gave the players a sense of malaise. You can see remnants of my original idea in the fairies' 4 arms and the color of their skin, which don't resemble a living creature's. We catch a fairy in the bottle and then release it next to Grandma. The fairy swirls around, and the dust falls on her and refreshes Grandma. Revived, she gives Link a bottle of his favorite soup. It's called Elixir Soup, and it is the strongest potion in the game. It refills Link's hearts and magic to full, and doubles his attack power until he takes damage. And to top it all off, there are 2 servings per bottle. Players can come back and visit Grandma at any time and get more soup. Heading around to the back of the island, Link and the King of Red Lions get caught in a swirling vortex in front of a massive stone door. Players need to use their cannon to destroy the door. If players fail to destroy the door before being sucked into the center of the whirlpool, they will have to start over again. Jaboon is a great anglerfish, and is named for Jabu Jabu in Ocarina of Time. As with the other spirits, he speaks ancient Hylian. Unlike the other spirits, Jabun never switches to English, nor does he have a translator. He and the King of Red Lions converse. We can understand only one side of the conversation. The king says that Ganon has returned, and that Link has no connection to the legendary hero of time. But he has great courage, and the storm and the extended night are part of Ganon's curse. That is what we can clearly glean. Other snippets of the conversation aren't so clear. Jabun hands over Nehru's Pearl, the final of the 3 magical jewels. Ganon's curse is broken by the pearl. The King of Red Lions marks the 3 locations where Link must place the pearls in order to reveal a trial of his courage. Like Windfall Island, Outset Island features a scavenger hunt style activity to do with the Tingle tuner. So before leaving this island, I had my wife join me as I called Tingle.
Hello, come in. Do you read me, Mr. Fairy is on Outset Island, correct?
I was aware, based on guides that I looked at, that there was a Tingle tuner activity on the island, but I did not look at what it was, so it took us a while to find it.
You don't see anything else, though?
No, not anywhere that I can see. I mean, I'm kind of moved my cursor all over the island, and granted, there's always a chance that I've missed something.
After our initial search of the island didn't turn up anything, I went to the top of the island.
Mr. Fairy, fly from here with the Deku Leaf to get to that rock. Remember to change the direction of the wind.
Using the Deku Leaf, I flew to the massive stone head which overlooks the village on the west side of the island. We'll return to this spot later in the game. I don't know if I know exactly why Tingle sent me here. Mandy and I did find a secret on a ledge just below the stone head.
Oh, there's something. Right here. Just a minute. Oh, Mr. Fairy, you have big eyes. No, wait, I mean you have a good eye. If you use a Tingle Bomb here, something good will happen. You ready? There you go.
Go.
Got something.
It is a large pot which contains 100 rupees every time that it's broken. We were starting to think that this is all we would find on the island, when we stumbled onto the scavenger hunt. Tingle's brother Knuckle appeared on the Tingle tuner along with Tingle. They argued, and Knuckle provided a challenge for Link.
Why'd you doodle on Tingle Tower? I built that. That for Tingle only sign I wrote. Sorry, please forgive me. Well, I might consider it if the fairy will do as I ask. Mr. Fairy, can you get in that outdoor bath? Just don't open any doors before you finish doing what I tell you.
The outdoor bath referred to is the well just north of Link's house.
Humph! Now let's test you further. Next, go down the ladder that no one uses.
This proved to be the trickiest of the riddles offered by Knuckle. The well I knew right away. The ladder I had to think about.
What about that ladder on that house? I mean, nobody else but you uses it, right?
But
I don't know.
you'd think they would have to, because it's how you get in the house.
It took us a little bit, but we found it. There is a small ladder that leads into the water next to the lookout tower.
Shoot, nice work. Next, can you climb onto the biggest rock at the top of the hill?
Finding the rock is pretty simple.
Here we go. Okay, congrats. You're pretty good, I must say. Next, try to jump down below the suspension bridge. Do you have that much courage?
But it took me a couple of tries to get to the spot that Knuckle wanted below the suspension bridge, or rather below where the bridge used to be. Once we got to that spot, Knuckle declared Link the winner, and gave Tingle the hand-me-down Tingle tuner. It's added to Tingle's list of items. Mandy and I never used it, but I understand that it's an item shop that can be accessed anywhere. Tingle also offers a prize of his own.
Mr. Fairy, you're great. You're like family. When you come to Tingle Island, I'll call you Paul instead of Mr. Fairy.
Oh, okay.
Is that it? I'll call you by your name now?
I guess. Give me a hand-me-down. I don't know.
Okay, well that was fun. You never know what you're gonna get with Mr. Tingle.
There are 3 Triangle Islands. Southern Triangle Island is 2 squares northeast of Outset Island. Northern Triangle Island is directly south of Windfall. And Eastern Triangle Island is directly south of Fire Mountain. Each island has a single statue on it. The statues are abstracted humanoid shapes with hair that looks suspiciously like tetras. Link can place a pearl into each statue's hands. Once all 3 pearls are placed, each statue explosively transforms from a vague humanoid figure into the form of a goddess. Link is set flying through the air. A beam of bright light travels between each statue, forming the symbol of a Triforce, matching the chart in Tetra's cabin. A massive tower rises from the ocean. It's made from white stone and has images of constellations etched into it. Link smashes into the outer wall of the tower, and the King of Red Lions arrives just in time to give him a ride. The king explains the tower is a place prepared by the gods to test the courage of men. If Link passes the test, the boat says, Link will be acknowledged as a true hero, and he'll be able to wield the power to defeat Ganon. Determined to defeat Ganon and free his sister, Link and the King of Red Lions head inside. This is the Tower of the Gods. It's all made from that white stone, accented with gold. The dungeon itself gives off sort of an ancient technology vibe. We run into BMOS enemies for the first time in the game here. There are also laser obstacles, moving platforms accented by glowing lights, and living statues. It could all be magic, but in my mind it strikes me as being technological. The music is heavy on synth choir voices. The choir mostly holds long, sustained notes. The melody, when it does develop, features the voices performing 2 steps up, followed by a step down. Percussion is light, and discordant strings and organ round out the sound. The dungeon is separated into 3 distinct sections. Each section becomes more straightforward and focused than the last. The first section is the most loosely structured. Link uses the King of Red Lions to navigate around the flooded lower floor, which features a water level that rises and falls at regular intervals. From the entrance, there is a bombable wall to the left, and immediately open invisible doors to the right. A golden carving of a face on the wall in the center has an impassable stream of water pouring from its mouth. Players can tackle the rooms of this dungeon in a variety of ways, but the most efficient way sees players going first to the right. A door on the southeast side of the room can only be accessed when the water's at its lowest level. Inside, Link finds several boxes which will float on the water. Players can move the boxes around in order to help them destroy bombable walls on the upper level. Behind the bombable spots in the wall are a number of alcoves. An alcove on the south center wall holds a treasure chest with the dungeon map. Then it's back out and onto the King of Red Lions to head to a door on the northeast side of the room. This door can only be accessed when the water level is at its highest point. Just outside the door, players need to place a non-living Armos statue on a floor switch to open it. They may notice a cross-shaped indentation on a floor beneath a gazebo-like structure just to the south of the door. Inside the room, players will find a lower level which features rising and falling water. It forms a gap that cannot be crossed between the 2 sides of the room. To get to the far side of the room, players need to place a box on a floor switch in the lower part of the room. This makes a rainbow bridge formed out of light appear, connecting the 2 sides of the room. But the rising and falling water puts that bridge on a timer. Players have to move across when the water's at its lowest point in order to avoid falling. After crossing the bridge, players can grab a statue with a cross-shaped bottom. They carry it back across the bridge, paying attention to the timing, and out the door. The statue can be placed on the cross-shaped indentation to the south. Turns out that statue was sort of a key, as placing it in the indentation causes a massive set of bars, creating a wall on the east side of the dungeon to lower, allowing players to travel further to the east. To the east, players find a room where they must arrange boxes to form a bridge across rising and falling water. Using their self-made bridge, players can carry a flame on a boko stick from one side of the room to the other, to light torches and reveal a chest. Inside is a small key. Then it's back out and through the bombable wall on the west side of the dungeon entrance. There are 2 rooms on this side of the dungeon. The only required room is the lower one. It's locked and it requires both the water to be at the lowest level and the small key that we just acquired in order to enter. The room features 4 electric choo-choo enemies, and a structure that we cannot climb with a statue with a cross-shaped base at the top. Clearing the room of enemies causes a staircase of light to appear. Link can grab the statue, take it out the door, and then up the stairs to the north to find a cross-shaped indentation in the floor. Placing the statue causes the water pouring from the mouth of the carving in the center of the room to be diverted, revealing a door. Through that door, players dodge a BMOS while placing statues on floor switches to power moving platforms. This in turn allows players to ascend the tower and reach the second floor, and the second segment of the dungeon. This segment introduces a teamwork and possession concept that will be expanded upon in later dungeons. There is a central room with 3 wings off of it, one to the east, one to the west, and one to the north. Players have to get 3 living statues into the central room to end the segment and ascend further up the tower. There is a set order that players are required to get the statues in. I've always wondered why that was, but playing through this time and thinking about it, I do feel each segment increases the complexity of the task, and the set order ultimately makes sense. Players first travel through the door on the east. At the end of the path is a set of stairs and a platform of light that allows players to quickly cross a room. A tablet near the statue on the far side of the room helpfully notes that Link can call the statue with the R button. That causes Link to speak, yes, speak, a fully voiced 2-word sentence.
Come on!
The statue follows behind Link, down a winding and relatively narrow path to cross the room. Once back in the central room, the statue takes its place, and a large tablet with Wind Waker symbols appears in the center of the room. The tablet teaches the command melody, a song that allows Link to possess and take control of 2 other statues here in the dungeon, and of companions in the later dungeons. Players first controlled a character other than Link in Majora's Mask. But speaking to Nintendo Dream in 2003, Eiji Aonuma traced the idea back even earlier. In Ocarina of Time 2, there was a section where you conquered a dungeon with the Zora tribe's Princess Ruto, he said. This is meant to feel like an enhanced version of that. Aonuma further described how the Tower of the Gods is meant to contrast with the quick scramble through Sakan's hideout in Majora's Mask, with both Link and Kafei. He said the Tower of the Gods has a feeling like, let me study this first. This time, unlike in Majora's Mask where it felt like this one's theme is time, there are various elements in it, and it feels like it's all put together. After getting the command melody, players head through the door on the west. Players have to use the grappling hook to cross 2 gaps in order to reach the statue down this route. We obviously can't swing while also holding a statue, so Link has to put the command melody to use. While Link keeps a floor switch depressed to create a bridge of light, he can possess the statue and walk it across the bridge. Unfortunately, there is no bridge to extend for the second gap. Instead, Link has to use the statue to keep a switch pressed in order to open a door to the south. Link can then use his grappling hook to swing to that door and pass through it in order to face the mini-boss. It's a Dark Nut. This is another case of the game taking an enemy that will become a standard enemy type and introducing it in a mini-boss fight. In the Wind Waker, Dark Nuts wear armor that must be removed or destroyed before we can damage them. There are straps on the back of the Dark Nut's armor that we can cut and cause it to fall away. These fights, to me, really emphasize the parry attack. It's the easiest way to remove the armor. When the parry attack is used, Link will generally roll to the Dark Nut's back and cut the straps. He can also leap through the air with a parry attack and knock off its helmet. When the Dark Nut falls, a chest appears with the dungeon item. It's the hero's bow. Using the bow, we can shoot an eye switch in the previous room and activate a moving platform to carry the statue back to the central room. At this point, players can access some optional rooms. An eye switch behind the northwestern door on the first floor reveals a chest with a treasure chart. An optional room to the east on the second floor contains a fight with 2 large Armos enemies known as Armos Knights, in order to obtain a joy pendant. The room to the north sees players manipulating a giant scale to reach different rooms. Weighing down the scale to the left allows Link to reach a room with 2 Armos Knights, and a spot to play the Wind's Requiem to get a treasure chart. A room to the east sees players navigating a moving platform challenge involving many moving platforms to get a small key and a joy pendant. Using non-living Armos statues to weigh down one side of the scale so that it will remain down, even when Link is standing on the other side, we can cross to a locked door on the north. Using the Deco Leaf and the command melody, Link can get over a laser barrier to reach a statue, and then use the statue to press a switch to deactivate the laser barrier so Link can escape. Players then have to weigh down the scale so that both Link and the statue can cross and return to the central room. When all 3 statues are placed, a portal to the 3rd floor appears. The 3rd floor is more or less a series of combat challenges. Players first take on a number of Armos statues. A weak point on their backs must be hit. An arrow to the eye will freeze them in place, making hitting the weak point much easier. Players then ascend to the 4th floor through an outdoor area. The stairs are lined with Beamos. Link can and must destroy a Beamos with an arrow if he hits it while it is firing its laser. There are Kargarok to fight as well. The 4th floor holds the boss fight, but before we go in, let's check in with our good friend Tingle. To be honest, Mandy and I really didn't find much of anything using the Tingle tuner inside the Tower of the Gods. Mandy did help get the map by using a Tingle bomb to blow open the wall, but we weren't really finding any rupees, riddles, or stories.
I mean, Tingle seems to have some hints about how to proceed, but nothing necessarily new.
Mandy did find a fairy in the first Beamos room.
Check it out. What is it? It's a fairy. Oh, happiness.
The Tingle statue is found in the same room with the Beamos. Players need to use the moving platforms to reach the top of the room, and then jump to a stationary platform in the air.
This place is really creepy. Mr. Fairy, this place is really creepy. Drop a bomb where it says Mr. Fairy?
On this platform, yeah, drop a bomb.
Oh, sorry. I'll figure this out eventually. Or I won't. Hey, you got the Goddess Tingle statue.
Salty seawater coating is kind of gross.
Oh, phew! Paul, you found it! This is the mystic Goddess Tingle statue. I'm in the playful pose. It represents the unending charm of Tingle the man.
Beyond that, we didn't find much of anything. Tingle does address the statues which Link can possess.
To the strange stone statue, heart, I'll be good, so please turn Tingle into a fairy soon.
And Mandy did make one unusual find, but we weren't able to make much of it. On the 2nd floor door through the north, and then through the room on the east with the multiple moving platforms and small key, Mandy found a spot where Tingle got stuck.
This way here. Come here, sir. I didn't do anything. I don't know.
It's acting like you're stuck.
It was in an area with no floor. Her cursor turned vertical like it does when Tingle gets stuck. In those moments, if Link walks to Tingle's location, he frees him. Players are then generally given a rupee for freeing Tingle. I jumped towards Tingle's location, and text seemed to appear on the Game Boy Advance screen, but it blacked out as I reset because Link fell into the void. Thinking about it now, perhaps we were supposed to use the Tingle balloon, or perhaps I could use the Deku Leaf, but I'm not entirely sure how players are supposed to get whatever is there. There's just no place to touch the ground. Not long after that, the batteries died on my Game Boy Advance. We had found very little at that point, so we decided just to call it a night for our 2-player session.
Pretty fun. It's still fun. It's fun to do it. It's fun to, kind of be able to play that multiplayer. The first dungeon's the best. I even think the last dungeon was better than this one. This one was...
It was.
Extremely boring for Tingle. I felt like I kept looking, trying to find something, and it would be like, oh look, it's a bad guy. Oh look, it's a stone statue. Hey look, this object is... what did it say? This object is...
It's a solid object.
Solid. Yeah, this is a solid object. And it's like, okay, I can see that it's a solid object. That really doesn't tell me that much. It's not really that exciting to me that it's a solid object, because, no duh, I can see it.
I checked a guide afterward and discovered that there is a hidden story and a number of rupees that we missed. The rupees seem to be hidden on the top of pillars or in raised areas and objects. It seems to me that if Tingle's not at the right elevation, they would not be found. And in a highly vertical space as this dungeon is, it can be hard to get Tingle at the proper level, so we missed a lot. The story segments do not seem to provide any sort of riddle or hint towards a secret treasure. It's called The Legend of the Fairy. It's told in 5 parts, and it seems to be sort of a Tingle origin story, describing the events of Majora's Mask in a way that's intended to mirror the prologue of The Wind Waker, but with a distinct focus on Tingle. Here's The Legend of the Fairy. It is said that long ago, a boy garbed in green known as the Hero of Time saved this land. However, on a certain island, there is also the story of the fairy who saved the hero. It is said that the Hero of Time met the fairy in the midst of his travels. The fairy appeared before the hero who had found himself lost in darkness. With a mystic power, it would float in midair, dancing above his head like a burst balloon. After the fairy handed the lost hero a map, it flew off as quickly as it had appeared. Better able to foresee places of danger than the hero, the fairy marked them on a map. The legend goes on to say that the quest of the Hero of Time was saved by this plump figure. Fairies live for thousands of years, but this odd fairy was a bit different. This mystical fairy was born near a lake, and when he met the hero, he was but 35. Beyond that, little is known about that fairy. On one island, they celebrate one's 35th birthday with a green coat and red pants. They do this in hopes of becoming like the legendary fairy, Tingle. Now, let's get to the boss. As players enter the boss room, a voice says that Link has done well to reach this place. It calls him a chosen one, and says what comes next is the final challenge. The boss is a floating head and a pair of disembodied hands known as Godan, fourth such boss we faced in the Zelda series. The first being Bongo Bongo in Ocarina of Time. The second one was Ramrock in Oracle of Ages. I think an argument could also be made about Onyx and his dragon form being among these bosses as well, even though his head and hands were not strictly disembodied. Of those bosses, Godan is perhaps most similar to Bongo Bongo, though the fight still feels distinct. Both bosses are fought in round arenas, with a dangerous, damaging out-of-bounds area along the outer edge. And both bosses must have their hands damaged before the head can be attacked. Specifics beyond that vary, however. Bongo Bongo's arena was a drum and he bounced Link by playing on it. The main body or head of the boss was invisible and could only be seen with the lens of truth. The hands would occasionally punch, swipe at, or try to crush Link. The hands could be damaged in a number of ways, from arrows to sword slashes, and once they were stunned, players had to shoot Bongo Bongo's eye to deal damage as the boss rushed towards them. With Godan, players need to shoot the eyes in the center of each hand with 2 arrows. Then both of Godan's eyes to drop the head to the ground. Then they must throw a bomb into the boss's open mouth. Godan's hands occasionally try to smash Link or push him off the edge of the arena. But the head is the more dangerous part. It spits an explosive fire attack from its mouth. The music for the Godan fight is perhaps the most dynamic of the entire game. It's primarily an organ piece. When the hands are active, the organ plays arpeggios backed by steady percussion. Once the hands have been stunned, the tempo picks up, and additional percussion is added. The organ begins to play chords. After the head drops to the floor, much of the percussion drops out. Once players have put a bomb into the mouth of Godan 3 times, the boss ends the fight. Godan states the way forward can now be opened. What will now come to pass is tied to your fate, to the path you have chosen, it says. Godan sneezes out a heart container and a portal appears. Passing through the portal, Link arrives on the roof of the Tower of the Gods. On top is a bell. Using the grappling hook, Link rings it. At the base of the tower, a portal appears in the water. Link and the King of Red Lions approach the portal. It would seem the gods have acknowledged you to be a true hero, the boat says. But that does not mean your trials have ended here. Link and the boat enter the portal and disappear beneath the waves. What will they find under the Great Sea? We'll find out next week. If you want to follow along, please subscribe. If you've already subscribed, thank you. You are amazing. I'm Paul Riley, and I will see you next week.